All those people that you're going to listen to and see today are people that are, in my mind, transformed men because they realized that the anxiety was a catalyst for them to find their truth, to find their authentic self, and to live a life that is much more joyful and purposeful than it has been before. Welcome to Get Real with me, Dr. Friedemann. If you want to live with greater purpose, authenticity, and empowerment, this is your time to upgrade your belief systems, unlock your true potential, and discover the endless possibilities of you becoming the creator of your life. Sim, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today and share a little bit about your journey with anxiety. Now, I'll ask the other volunteers what their anxiety symptoms were and how long they had anxiety before they were actually asking for help. How was that for you?
Sure. Well, I can kind of give you a little bit of background into, I guess I've always had anxiety. It's just something that I've kind of dealt with. However, it was something that I didn't know that I had until I had all this pressure at work and it kind of just built up. Um, so it just started with kind of like being really restless and it just so happened that like I think one time I just had so much adrenaline inside me that I was having trouble even walking. Another big thing with anxiety, which really got worse, like maybe a month or two down the road, was just the thoughts that were coming into my head, and it was just like the slightest thing would just throw me into a whirlwind of worry and just wondering like, okay, is this thought like it was like uh, it was like a never ending kind of like thought process where like by the end of it I could feel that my brain was just so tired of just thinking of every single possibility and just um yeah, so that was a little bit of my symptoms, I guess, just not being able to sleep.
And what would
And,
be like a thought like that, the typical thought that you would have?
um, yeah, like, so I guess a way to kind of like combat like this anxiety was just to kind of like, um, at the time, I would say it was like combat because I felt like I was in a fight with it. But it was just kind of going to like, for instance, I would go to for a walk in the park or a walk by the lake. Um, and at this one instance, I had gone to the park with my son. And it was just one of those instances where I think there was like some sort of fair or something going on where there was, they had activities for kids. So at this particular moment, I think one of the organizers, I think they were kind of blowing bubbles or something. And then I think one of the bubbles got on my head and I was just like, oh my God, what is this bubble? Like, like I had to rush home and, take a shower. And like, it was almost like every little thing was just making me like into a whirlwind of worry. So
Mhm.
it's almost like, your most important organ, which is your brain, is almost like not able to kind of decipher what is real danger as opposed to just regular activities. So it's almost like you're always in a, in a perpetual state of this sort of worry or fear or and it's just something that you just, I guess the most frustrating part was like when you're going through something even when you're going through some sort of pain or anything like that, you can kind of take a respite from it by, getting some sleep. But the fact that I wasn't getting any sleep, it was just exacerbating the problem. And I guess I was just in that. I guess one of the things that I realized about myself was I was just going to my wife or my siblings in the middle of the night and just, texting them and saying, "Oh my God, I can't sleep. I can't sleep. What do I do? What do I do?" So that was just one of the things that I,
Yeah.
learned how to kind of, by working with you, just learn to kind of, handle my own problems and, build that trust in myself as well. So,
But you were
yeah,
definitely in a bad shape when we started first talking.
yeah,
And
yeah.
when you look back, what do you feel like made you want to work the way I'm working? What was the idea for you? Like, okay, I look for another way and an alternative way. And what were you especially looking for when you came?
Oh, oh, to work with you.
Right.
I think it was just really tough for my family as a whole. So there was many nights that like my wife, like if I wasn't sleeping, my wife wasn't sleeping either. Sometimes I would like go into another room. Um, one particular instance, I went into another room and I think this was a week where I didn't sleep for I think 3 or 4 days straight. So I was up for 3 or 4 days straight. So all I was doing is I had my light on and I was just on the website drugs.com and just searching different drugs that would help me with my anxiety and then reading the side effects and then getting even more anxiety. So yeah, so
But
that was just
I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to you with the not
yeah.
sleeping, with the feeling of just not seeing any progress, not seeing any solution. And I know that for you and I, it was at the beginning really, really important for you to trust that something can change, that you can outgrow this, that you can heal, and that you are doing the work. But when you're tracing your steps back, what do you think are some of those real opening insights that you gained? Whether it's work on your past, connecting to your inner child, or what would you say really made you feel like, yeah, I can see much more clearly beyond the symptoms?
Um, for me personally, I think anxiety was just something that um, I was able to, for me, I think anxiety is about a large element of it is about trust. So just building that trust in yourself. So whenever you have, you know, any sort of anxiety or any sort of kind of setback or any issues, you have that, feeling inside yourself that, okay, you know what, I have the toolkits that I have, and I have trust in myself that I will be able to um, kind of overcome whatever feeling that I'm getting.
One thing I wanted just to ask you about what you mentioned, your avoidance, because that's a really common way people cope with their issues. And avoidance, like you said, is often distraction, can be also avoidance of discomfort. Now, you definitely, would say, well, I was avoiding a lot of things. I was avoiding maybe, you know, making up my own mind, taking responsibility, rather asking other people. You were avoiding maybe also things about your finances, or the beauty about your journey was also that you really grew out of all of that and empowered yourself. Tell us a little bit more about the sense of no longer being in that anxious child mentality, which was a part of, I think, what you were dealing with.
Yeah, so I guess the avoidance pattern was just something that I kind of subconsciously, I feel like I picked up from maybe my mom. I know she has an avoidance pattern. She likes to avoid conflict. So that was just something that subconsciously I picked up from my mom. So whenever I would have any sort of discomfort, I would just kind of excuse myself from the situation, or, you know, just not be able to. It was similar to my work situation as well, where I just wanted, like, I was feeling discomfort and I would just wanted to kind of just run away and just, like be in my, um, just be at home. Um, so that avoidance pattern kind of like um, extended into anxiety as well, where I just wanted to avoid my thoughts. I just wanted to avoid that pattern of anxiety, where I was just, one of the symptoms that I also had with anxiety was, like, I just started pacing. So there were some days where I would just pace around the house all day, and my wife would come home from work and ask me what I did, and I would tell her that I paced the whole day.
It's like
Um,
walking away from yourself, right?
yeah, yeah. So I had all of that anxious energy, and I guess you mentioned that, like, pacing was kind of like me trying to run away from, my present situation. So that was just a physical manifestation of what I was feeling.
Do you feel like you had to change your relationship to yourself in order to do those things? Sometimes we are telling ourselves, oh, I'm just gonna push through the anxiety, I'm just gonna expose myself, but then we are creating more damage and we are helping because we haven't really changed. We haven't really seen ourselves differently. We didn't really create more trust. So wasn't your journey first to really build more the belief in yourself, knowing that you can comfort yourself, that you can rely on yourself, that you can do the things that you were avoiding before you were exposing yourself to those things?
Yeah, I think a big part is, with anxiety, like you mentioned, is kind of understanding that anxiety is just that inner child where, it's kind of telling you, like, I remember you were telling me this, that whenever you get into this state, just it's just the inner child asking you, like, are we safe? Are we safe? And, just comforting myself. And, whenever I get into these sort of anxious states, or whenever I feel anxious, just realizing that, like, yeah, we are safe. We are capable of doing whatever it is asked of us. We are confident. We can do this. So obviously that wasn't something that just, happened overnight. It took a lot of work. I was just, I had a lot of learning to do, that's for sure.
And how are you now? What would you say how has the anxiety journey, this outgrowing into more trusting yourself, how has this changed you? How has it changed your life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is, like, I no longer feel like I have handcuffs on myself. Like, um, for the longest time, I'm 37 right now, but I guess from 18 to, or I would say, like, the beginning of high school, when my, I began, like, what I thought was my stomach issues, that's when they started. So from 15 to 34, I had these, like, um, stomach issues. Um, I knew that there was something wrong. I just didn't know that it was my mental health that needed to be addressed. So I went to traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. I went to naturopaths. I went to everyone, just trying to figure out what was wrong with my stomach. And it wasn't until the anxiety got into a state where I could no longer ignore it that I realized that it was anxiety. So just being able to like kind of address the when I realized it was anxiety, just being able to address the anxiety and just kind of building a stronger me, building a more confident me, building a person that is trustworthy, not only for my someone that my wife can trust and has confidence in, someone that someone that my children can kind of look up to and be like, okay, you know what, our dad, he does, maybe he might get into an anxious state or whatever, but he's able to kind of get out of those situations, and he has a trust in himself, and he has a confidence to face whatever problems that he has. So I guess for me, it was just, I guess I no longer like being able to kind of go on this journey with anxiety. It kind of it allowed me to not have any handcuffs on my hand anymore. So I can kind of be myself. I no longer have I'm really scared of what people think of me, or I am who I am. And I remember I encourage a lot of your listeners. I was listening to one of your recent podcasts, and the lady had the same issues where like the anxiety went to her gut. So it's just something to keep in mind for people that are facing these kind of issues, that it might have more to do with your head than it does your gut.
So if you would have never really listened to your anxiety, what kind of person would you be?
Meaning if
you would have never addressed it, you would have never done anything about it, you would have never grown beyond it.
I guess I would just be a shell of myself, right? I wouldn't be confident. It would probably result in, not really applying myself to anything, right? At the first set of some sort of difficulty or hardship, I would just quit. So I guess going through this journey has given me the confidence and the toolkit to kind of deal with any situation that comes my way. So what resulted was a more confident person, a more trusting person, a more a better husband, a better son, a better father, right? So I think
for anyone who is afraid of dealing with anxiety, especially men who often have a hard time sharing with others that they're anxious, what would you advise them?
Men owe it to themselves to really, really explore this area of mental health and mental well-being. It could really add to their life expectancy, and just to I'm sure they're in relationships where their wives love them, and a lot of people are depending on them, and it's much more easier to address these issues now rather than them turning into a much more debilitating disease.
Absolutely. And not only that, I mean, you're the best example of someone who knows that now that you have addressed your anxiety and that you grew into the self-reliant, self-trusting man that you became, your life is better. relationships are better, your job experience is better, your relationship to your children is better. I mean, you just have also probably much more peace and fulfillment in your life than before.
I guess anxiety and like mental health is something that has kind of run through my family, more specifically my mom's side of the family. And yeah, yeah, we lost like some family members to, mental health. Um, but I guess I was brought into this world to kind of put an end to that, put an end to the suffering, put an end to the way my mom kind of dealt with anxiety was just to kind of avoid it or to,
Mm.
suppress it, not bring it up. But I'm trying a new approach, and you know, I am addressing it, and I am bringing it up, and I do feel that it is very important. Um, I know my son kind of maybe subconsciously picked up a little bit of anxiety from me, so so I'm going to learn whatever I learn from you, and you know, um, use those principles or share those principles with him. So we no longer have to be burdened by this.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way of also paying it forward. And like you said, ending the cycle of anxiety in your lineage and creating, hopefully, for your children and yourself more joyful and peaceful experiences. So thank you, Sim, so much for being here and inspiring all the listeners and viewers to, because they can relate, I'm sure, many of them, to what you went through, because you had this whole spectrum of struggles and you could have just given up, but you didn't. And that is something that you, and I think as an inspiration, you can be very proud of yourself. So thank you very much for being there.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. You've been an instrumental part of my journey, and yeah, I'm just really grateful.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today. And as I just said before the recording started, you are a star because you certainly have overcome so much. So I want to just ask you, what would you say was, what were your anxiety symptoms? What did you struggle with the most before we met?
Well, Dr. Freeman, thank you. It's been great. Our sessions together have been great and very beneficial. And to answer your question, I was in a mess. However, I didn't really know exactly how to label it. I knew, I heard the word anxiety, but specifically, I didn't know exactly what that was or symptoms were. But I felt lousy and was in like some physical and probably mental pain as well. And I had read your book and benefited from that, but I said, well, this could well be anxiety, and I had actually had even before thought of that as well. And so I was it wasn't a thing where I can specifically label it. It was kind of an overwhelming feeling of discomfort and pain and not good. But I really wasn't, you think of it, well, is this something that's normal or not normal? It's really, you really didn't think of it as a separate thing. It just kind of was an overwhelming thing. It was who you are. And it was something that I had dealt with for so long. And I didn't say, well, this is specifically anxiety. I just knew that I wasn't well at the time.
For how long have you been dealing with it, you think?
Oh, I would bet it would be signs of at least a couple decades probably, and it kind of maybe even goes back farther than that. As we've talked about, I had some kind of craziness growing up and things like that and other obstacles. So the seeds kind of planted then, and it probably has been with me in one form or another for maybe many decades, but it kind of came on even much stronger right before I got in touch with you. And so it was, to actually specifically describe it, the symptoms, it was just kind of an overall feeling of unwellness and like anguish, maybe mental anguish and some physical anguish that as well, that can be part of anxiety too, as you talked about, as we have talked about. But it was a thing where it was kind of overwhelming, and it was kind of when I reached out to you, which I'm so glad I did. It was a thing where it was a decision just to, I don't know if I say desperation, but it was just another, I'll give this a shot. I've tried other things. The book has great ideas, but when you actually have the meeting with you, it crystallizes it, or it brings it to reality as well, even more reality. And it has been very helpful, and it gives you a perspective. That's another thing. I really didn't, when you're there, you don't really have a perspective. You just know you're in pain, but talking with you gives you a perspective of what it actually is, and it's not you. But I had the overwhelming feeling that that's all I was. It was just, I was kind of day to day, kind of struggling to get along, and
I mean, for you, it was certainly your physical pain because you couldn't do your biking anymore or things that you like to do. But then you also, it was interesting when you were starting to listen to your thoughts. I mean, you didn't even realize how negative your thoughts were. Remember at the beginning, it was an unawareness of how many times you beat yourself up, put yourself down, judged yourself, told yourself, I cannot do this. This is, too much. I'm not good enough. I mean, what would you say? Was that something that was a first step for you to realize, oh, I am actually doing this to myself?
That's so true. We've come such a long way in our sessions and been so positive. And then looking back on it, you have to recall that the situation, I have to recall the situation I was in. And it's hard to remember all the things I was going through, but you're right. It was a constant chatter of negativity that I was unleashing on myself. It was just it's kind of what I had grown up with, negativity and things like that, and just kind of instilled in me. And I thought that was normal. I mean, I didn't have much everything I did, if something messed up, I would point to myself rather than just take it as a situation that has to be dealt with maybe in a different way. It's not me. It's just dealing with a situation, whether it's at work or anything, actually. But it was a constant negativity that I think, well, if I'm involved in this, something wrong will happen. If it does happen, it's all me. It's my fault. And so it's just I'm inadequate in what I do. And those thoughts were constant. And you're right. It was an unawareness that I even had those thoughts. It was just like I was a fish that didn't know it was in water. I just it was just with me all. I was surrounded by it, and to bringing that out and realizing that I do have those thoughts, that was a great benefit. Even before I actually dealt with it, just knowing that I had those thoughts was a great help. And I didn't know that. And the negative thoughts, you're right, were a major part of contributing to my overall anxiety, no doubt.
And I think, the negative thoughts were, and like many men have that issue, very comparing with others and feeling less than. And especially at work, I remember there were things where you just felt, like you just mentioned, inadequate. And a fun side note is that once you were starting to really overcome your anxiety, you actually won the Employee of the Year award, which proved that you were not inadequate at all, but highly appreciated.
Yes, that was that after we had done a number of sessions that came along, I was surprised, but we also talked about the picture of myself that I was putting forward to others. When that improved with me, my outward how others looked at me improved as well. So that, I think that was a contributor to that as well. People saw that I was more confident in myself, and I would guess that was a factor in how I got that too. And so if I started looking at myself better, my truer self came through, and I think that was a factor. So that definitely contributed to that. But thank you for mentioning that.
Well, yeah, and I think you said also that how you're interacting with others by showing your authenticity is almost making other people so much more open themselves, where you in the past you would have looked at people that you thought were better or more successful or any of those things, and now you just treat them like an equal, and
Yes.
they are so appreciative and opening up to you, right?
That is, I mean, that is the word miraculous is the way I look at it. It's just like before I would tense up in most interactions with other people, and I would have that feeling of inadequacy when I would do that, whether it was someone higher up in the organization I work with or anyone actually, kind of get there, my boss or whatever. And yes, just letting your authentic self out, and just it's almost like you're just naturally reacting to things rather than being tensed up, which creates anxiety, and making sure you say the right thing, walking on eggshells all the time. If you just relax and be yourself, it just is amazing, and people want to share more of themselves with you when you do that, because they know it's kind of a barrier you put up between people if you're just all the time pretending and not being yourself. But when you, like I say, being more authentic, and that is what I'm have really made many advances in being more authentic. And that's another thing I didn't know. I didn't know I was so out of touch with my authentic self. And but the interactions with people, that's been one of my greatest positive steps forward from our sessions.
And do you feel like that the authentic self was always there and you were just not aware of it, or you were hiding it? Or do you feel the authentic self was something that you developed once you overcame the anxiety?
It was always there. I think it is always there. Probably with anybody, it's always there. But it's just that I had hid it for some reason. I would guess, being just looking at it, it would be something that I was afraid to be myself, because in the past I would think that had negative results, which I probably wasn't being myself in the past too. But you're right. It was always there. But this you kind of drop the barrier or whatever, and the more you can be your authentic self, it just really it makes you feel better about things, and so it probably, yes, I think it was always there. It just this kind of it unleashes it or whatever, and makes it more. When I realize it is there, I'm more less fearful to be my authentic self, and I've made much progress in that area. So.
And how much do you feel like that the work on your past, especially your childhood, and also working with the inner child, had helped you to just find more peace around it and ultimately leave this behind you?
Yes, well, I've heard of that, the term inner child before we started meeting, but that's it. We're basically still have that inner child with us, and you taught me some techniques to do that, and I've done a few little writing exercises and other things that we've talked about. You're right. You still have that basic inner child always with you, whatever age you are. And so that's, I guess, would be the authentic self as well. And we taught things even by looking at a picture of myself when I'm a young child or whatever. That gives you more of a good feeling that child still is there. And it really makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of getting in touch with that. We've talked about ways to do that, and it's been very invaluable as well. And so it does.
But isn't it interesting that when you probably thought back at your childhood before, you probably had a lot of negative feelings about it, like maybe there was some pain or some resentment. And now when you think about the inner child, what do you feel differently? Is there like less of the negativity, more of a warm compassion, or what? How would you describe the relationship?
Interesting you say that. I've thought about that myself, not really as a very young child, but maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, that I look back with much empathy, that there was a young child there just wanting to get along in this world, and a lot of negativity was thrown at him at that age, and further ages when I got older. And you really have much sympathy for him, and much you really feel for the child and what they went through, and you really have much more empathy and sympathy and caring for the inner child, that they went through a lot, and they just an innocent child that didn't deserve all that. And you really get a better admiration or whatever, or love for the inner child, that when you think about that, it really can almost kind of brings up some emotion or whatever that you feel for the child and what they went through, and that you feel some sympathy for him just looking back. And I look at some of the things I did and went through and experienced, and why does a person have to do that? But you really feel more empathy. And when you do that, you really kind of get a better feeling too. It's a thing where you really validate the inner child is really a wonderful person and deserves to be cared for and respected and everything like that. So that helps as well, to have more of a respect or sympathy or good feeling for your inner child too.
Well, what was also interesting, and I think that I see this very often, is that when you realize the inner child or whatever happened in the past to you didn't really deserve, you automatically also can much more disconnect from those imprints and limiting beliefs and feelings of inadequacy that in the end were not really your idea. It was like how your environment treated you and how you were, maybe talked to. But until you really made that connection to the child, you probably thought, well, that's probably the truth. That must be me. I must be exactly what people thought I was or how they treated me in my childhood. And then when you're seeing it more from the outside and you realize who you were and what happened to you, and you realize that's not fair, that's not really what I deserved, all those imprints have no longer that same power. Isn't that true?
That is true. You're right. And you do think, even from that age and on, all the things that happened to you, you think you do kind of deserve them, because you always go back to yourself. I must be inadequate. People who criticize must be right. I deserve this because I'm doing something wrong. And you do, when you turn it and you can be more empathetic for the child and say, they don't deserve that. No one deserves to have to go through something like that. It does give you a better feeling about the whole situation. It makes you feel better as an adult or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and when you look back at your journey, one of those steps that really helped you, and I think it's a step that we all need to remember, is to implement that we are more authentic, that we are growing beyond our old beliefs and patterns and anxieties. And that means sometimes getting out of the comfort zone. And for you, it was literally doing things that you were not so comfortable with, like changing your home. You were moving out, a place that you have been in for many years. And then you said, how was that for you? What did that do for you?
Well, when we had our sessions and everything, they were very beneficial, but I still had to kind of fight that thinking that this isn't really going to work. I mean, I'm not ever going to get better, things like that. And, I'm doing the sessions. Dr. Friedemann is great, but you kind of still have to fight the negative feelings. And you had mentioned that you didn't really overwhelm me, but you said it might be a good idea to maybe even physically move. And my natural thinking, well, what does that matter? It don't matter where I live or anything. It's just four walls and things like that. But when you plant a seed, that sometimes it doesn't hit right away, and I just got to think, well, I might give that a shot. And so I found another place not far from where I used to live, and moved, and it was a dramatic change. I mean, it really was. And it's, like I say, it's in the same town, and it's not a whole lot different from the place I used to live, but the move really, it just kind of crystallized a lot. And I'm still really glad I did it. It's been almost 2 years now since I did that. And it was, it's really, I'm glad I did it, and it's changed. It gives me a new perspective, and it's a smaller place. So the people here, it's kind of more of a community type thing. I used to live in a larger facility, and so you kind of give a community interaction and support the neighbors and things like that. You just kind of, so it's been positive on virtually every front, and so that's a positive as well. So it wasn't even a dramatic move. It was just a move, kind of across town, but it was just kind of a move that the department, and we've also talked about things about you can kind of spruce up your apartment and your environment, make it better and things like that. And so been really it's been a challenge, but I've been really making an effort to do that. And so that's part of anxiety. I was kind of just stuck in a situation where everything I do would do minimally. Well, I live here, I just kind of do this and do that. Whereas I kind of now can be proactive and make my life better in that way as well. But the change there, is, like I say, it's not like I moved across country or anything, but it was a good move. And I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad you.
I mean, being in their old place were so many memories, and also it was, we talked about a reflection on how you treated yourself. Very, utilitarian, not really anything that you were looking forward to come home to. And now it just really changed because you value yourself more and your environment reflects that. And that's something that I also find, in general important. Like you did, say no to people that took you for granted, or say no to things that, just assume that you will show up as a volunteer or as, to helping out. And you realized it stresses you out. It's too much for you. You don't have the energy. And so you said no, something that probably in the past you would have never dared to do.
Yeah, I don't want them to think badly of me. That's what I would be thinking, because people already thought badly enough of me, which was what I thought. But that's exactly right too. So change is more than just that. And yes, it was just my thoughts were so all over the place that here I got an apartment. I go to it after I get off work, and it's no big deal. But it actually was a big deal. I mean, it's your immediate environment is and it's, you're right, utilitarian is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
We've talked about that as well. And that's all it was. And that's kind of a thing from my family history as well. I mean, that was kind of an attitude for a lot of things. But it's an ongoing thing. I make an effort. But it's definitely worth the effort to make my surroundings better and like that. But it was definitely the change that has definitely been good.
Do you feel like overall your life, the way you feel it, the way you experience it, is better because you were addressing your anxiety?
Oh, yes, no doubt. So much better. And it's an ongoing thing, but it's oh my gosh, from where point A to point B, from where we first started meeting to now, I mean, it hasn't been a straight line. I've had some times where I wasn't thinking I was making progress, and is this really I'm not going to say it's been nirvana, but from point A to point B, it's not even comparable. I mean, and like I say, there's still sometimes I don't know if this, but 2 steps forward, 1 back, but the progress is. I mean, I'm confident too. That's another thing. I've been confident that I can get better, and it's. And I can still get better. I mean, it's an ongoing thing. It always will be. And as far as anxiety, like I say, interacting with people, like saying, I can, every time I learn, I can relax more, be more myself. So much better.
I mean, I think one of the things that you just mentioned about confidence is also that, like most people, when you had an emotion like an anxiety, or you felt something in your body that was stress related, you didn't have the tools. You didn't really know what to do with it. And now you know, okay, I'll just kind of do certain things and it makes me feel better, and I'll realize where it comes from, and then you shift out of it, and that gives you confidence. That gives you a sense of, I have the owner's manual to my mind now and to my body. Now I know what to do.
Yes, I mean, you're right. Anxiety still can come on sometimes, but you're right. I know how to deal with it, and we've talked about this as well. Anxiety is not who I am. It's a thing that's there, and how I react to it, and things I can do, and it can go down, and it does work. And that's another thing. In the past, I just kind of said that I can't do anything about it, but now I can, and the tools are there. You're right, and what we've talked about, like I say, the confidence that you can get better. I kept thinking that, because I tried other things before we started meeting, and it may have helped, but it really not much really did that, because I still was kind of in bad shape when I called you. So in other words, obviously nothing really helped, but it was just kind of another step I took. But I'm glad I took it. And like you're saying, guys sometimes don't think, well, I don't need to do this, or I don't need to reach out, or I'll just solve this on my own. Well, I wasn't solving it on my own, obviously, looking back now, but so it's not admitting a weakness or something if you reach out for some help or whatever. It's a great benefit. And like I say, I'm not saying it's not magic and it doesn't happen overnight, but it's you can get better. That's one thing. And I didn't think I could. Even, like I say, even after the first part of our first few, session, it sinks well. I don't know. It was kind of, it's rocky and things like that, but it's definitely worth it to go. To just keep trying it, and when you have confidence and you can get better, you can do things that will get you even better. You go ahead and do them.
I mean, it's a growing process. It's a growth process. But would you say, from what you tried in the past, where you wanted to deal with anxiety, was the focus there more on let's somehow manage the symptom? And what you learned on your healing journey was more like the symptom is just the symptom of a bigger issue, which is me being stuck in my past, stuck in a limiting idea of who I am, stuck in, negative thinking towards myself. I mean, would you say that you had to grow from that in order to change and not just battle the emotion, which I think is really an important message that I also want to convey, that it's not about, oh, let's get rid of the anxiety. It's about let's grow from it and beyond it.
Yes, getting rid of the anxiety is just a benefit of changing and seeing that there's so much more than I could see. I was unaware of so much, and we talk about being aware of it. I was unaware of so much, and it's just, I don't know what, I guess they say, opening up a whole new universe of things that I didn't know, and things that you can work on and experience.
Thank you so much, Mark, for showing up here, for showing up in your world. And I really appreciate that you took the time to talk with me.
Thank you, Dr. Friedemann. And I can't thank you enough. My life has been transformed since we've met. And I thank you for all your efforts. And it really is an effort. I know you're a very busy person, but you treat each person individually, and you focus just on them when they don't think about all the other things you got going on. You give attention to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.